Long time ago, there was a kingdom hidden between misty mountains and a silver river that never seemed to sleep. The people called it Aeloria, a land where the wind whispered secrets and the stars shone brighter than anywhere else in the world. Travelers rarely found it by accident, for the roads leading there often changed, as if the land itself chose who was worthy to enter. In the heart of Aeloria stood a small village named Brindlewood, built from warm stone and dark timber. Every morning, smoke curled gently from chimneys, and the sound of bells echoed as farmers led their animals into the fields. Though life was simple, there was an unspoken feeling among the villagers that something ancient watched over them. The elders often spoke in hushed voices about old legends, warning children never to wander into the northern forest alone. Among the villagers lived a young girl named Elin. She had curious eyes the color of morning rain and hair as dark as the raven's wing. Unlike other children, Elin was drawn not to games or laughter, but to stories. She spent hours listening to the elders, memorizing every word about heroes, lost magic, and forgotten wars. While others feared the northern forest, Elin felt strangely connected to it, as if it were calling her name. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountains, Elin helped her grandmother prepare supper. The old woman's hands trembled slightly as she stirred the pot, her face lined with years of both joy and sorrow. Suddenly, she stopped and looked at Elin with a seriousness that made the room feel colder. "Some destinies," her grandmother said softly, "are written long before we are born." Elin frowned. "What do you mean, grandmother?" Instead of answering, the old woman reached beneath the table and pulled out a small wooden box. Its surface was carved with strange symbols that glowed faintly in the dim light. Inside lay a simple silver pendant shaped like a leaf, warm to the touch. "This belonged to your parents," her grandmother whispered. "You must never lose it." Elin had never known her parents. They had vanished during a storm many years ago, leaving only questions behind. Holding the pendant, she felt a sudden rush of warmth spread through her chest, followed by a distant echo, like a voice calling from far away. That night, Elin could not sleep. The moonlight streamed through her window, illuminating the pendant resting on her palm. Without warning, the wind outside grew fierce, rattling the shutters. From the distance, the northern forest stirred, its trees bending as if bowing to something unseen. Then Elin heard it clearly. Her name. Not spoken aloud, but carried through her mind like a whisper wrapped in thunder. Heart-pounding, she rose from her bed and looked toward the forest. She didn't know why, but deep inside she understood one thing with chilling certainty. Her quiet life in Brindlewood was about to end, and a path far greater than she imagined had begun to unfold. Elin stood by the window long after the whisper faded, her heart beating fast like a trapped bird. The forest lay quiet again, as if nothing strange had happened. Yet she knew it was not a dream. The silver pendant in her hand pulsed softly, warm and alive. Before dawn, Elin made her decision. She packed a small bag with bread, dried fruit, and a cloak. When she turned to leave, she paused at her grandmother's door. For a moment, she wanted to wake her and tell her everything. But something deep inside warned her that this journey must begin alone. With tears in her eyes, Elin whispered goodbye and stepped into the cool morning air. The northern forest greeted her with towering trees and thick shadows. Sunlight barely reached the ground, and the air smelled of moss and damp earth. Every sound seemed louder, cracking branches, distant birds, and the soft rustle of unseen creatures. Fear crept into her chest, but the pendant guided her forward, growing warmer whenever she hesitated. After hours of walking, Elin reached a clearing she had never seen before. In the center stood a stone arch covered in glowing runes. As she approached, the runes flared with light, and a figure stepped out from behind the stones. He was tall, cloaked in deep green, with silver streaks in his dark hair. His eyes shone with knowledge far beyond his years. "I have been waiting for you, Elin of Brindlewood," he said calmly. Elin gasped. "How do you know my name?" The stranger smiled faintly. "Because your story began long before you were born." He introduced himself as Heir, a guardian of the old magic. He explained that Aeloria was protected by ancient forces, bound to a royal bloodline that had vanished years ago. Without its heir, the magic weakened, allowing darkness to slowly creep back into the land. Elin shook her head. "I'm just a village girl." Kel raised his hand, pointing to the pendant. "That leaf is the symbol of the lost royal house. Your parents were its last protectors." Before Elin could speak, the ground trembled. A deep growl echoed through the trees. From the shadows emerged dark, twisted creatures with glowing eyes and claws sharp as blades. "The Shadowborn," Kale muttered. "They have found you." Kale drew a staff from beneath his cloak, light bursting from its tip. Run! But Elin couldn't move. One of the creatures lunged toward her. Instinct took over. She clutched the pendant, and a sudden burst of light exploded around her, throwing the creature back. Elin stared at her glowing hands in shock. Kale looked at her with awe. The magic has awakened. More Shadowborn closed in, but Kale created a shield of light, holding them back. We must leave now. There is no time. As they fled deeper into the forest, Elin realized her life would never return to what it once was. The stories she loved were no longer tales told by firelight. She was living one now. They did not stop running until the forest thinned and the sky opened wide above them. Elin collapsed onto the grass, her lungs burning, while Kale scanned the horizon for danger. The Shadowborn had vanished, but their presence still lingered like a bad dream that refused to fade. You did well, Kale said at last. Few awaken their magic so quickly. Elin shook her head, still trembling. I didn't know what I was doing. It just happened. That is how true magic works, Kale replied. It answers the heart before the mind. As the sun climbed higher, Kyle led Elin toward a hidden path carved into the hills. By evening, they reached an ancient tower built from pale stone, cracked by time yet standing strong. Ivy climbed its walls and strange symbols glowed faintly around its door. This is the Tower of Loom, Kale said. A place of learning for those chosen by magic. Inside, the tower was larger than it appeared. Candles lit themselves as they entered, revealing shelves filled with dusty books and glowing crystals. Elin felt a sense of belonging she could not explain. Days turned into weeks as Elin trained under Kyle's guidance. She learned to focus her energy, to listen to the magic flowing through the land, and to control the power that once burst out in fear. The pendant helped her, acting like a key that unlocked forgotten knowledge. Yet the more she learned, the more her dreams changed. Each night she saw a crown of silver leaves resting on a shattered throne. A dark figure watched from the shadows, its eyes burning with hatred. Whenever she reached for the crown, the figure whispered her name, filling her with dread. One morning, Elin woke with a sharp pain in her chest. Kale knew at once something was wrong. The dreams are visions, he said gravely. The enemy knows you exist now. Elin, Kale continued, the Shadowborn serve Morvath, a fallen guardian who once swore to protect Aeloria. When the royal bloodline disappeared, he turned against the land, seeking the crown for himself. Elin clenched her fists. Then I have to stop him. Kale studied her carefully. Power alone will not be enough. You must unite the scattered realms of Aeloria. Many no longer believe the old legends. Before Elin could respond, a loud crack split the air. The tower shook violently and dark smoke poured through the windows. They've found us, Kale shouted. The walls shattered as Shadowborn flooded inside, their claws scraping stone. Kale fought fiercely, his staff blazing with light, but there were too many. Elin, he cried. Take this path and don't look back. A hidden doorway opened behind her. Tears filled Elin's eyes as she hesitated. Kale met her gaze and nodded firmly. You are Aeloria's hope. With a final glance, Elin ran. The passage twisted downward, leading her far from the tower. As the exit opened into the night, the tower behind her collapsed in a roar of fire and shadow. Elin fell to her knees, grief crushing her heart. But as she stood again, the pendant glowed brighter than ever, and she felt something new rise within her. Not fear, resolve. Her journey had truly begun. Elin walked alone beneath a sky heavy with clouds, each step carrying her farther from the life she once knew. The road ahead was uncertain, yet her heart burned with purpose. Kale's words echoed in her mind, giving her strength whenever doubt crept in. After several days of travel, Elin reached the borders of Thornreach, a harsh land of stone cliffs and iron gates. The people there were strong, proud, and wary of strangers, especially those who carried magic. Tall walls surrounded the city, and armed guards blocked her path. I seek the Council of Thornreach, Elin said, lifting her chin. The guards scoffed. The council does not listen to lone travelers. Go back the way you came. Before Elin could reply, the ground shook violently. Cracks split the stone road, and from beneath the earth burst a massive stone worm, its rocky scales grinding together like thunder. Screams echoed as people fled in terror. Without hesitation, Elin stepped forward. She felt the pendant grow hot against her chest. Closing her eyes, she reached deep within herself, calling upon the magic she had learned to trust. Green light spilled from her hands as vines and roots surged from the ground, wrapping around the creature. The worm roared, struggling, then slowly grew still. Its glowing eyes dimmed, and it sank back into the earth, the ground sealing over it as if it had never been there. Silence fell over Thornreach. The guards stared at Elin in disbelief. Whispers spread quickly through the crowd, words like chosen and heir floated through the air. That night, Elin stood before the council of Thornreach. She spoke of Morvath, of the Shadowborn, and of the crown that once protected Aeloria. She told them the land itself was weakening and that no realm would be spared if darkness rose fully. The council argued long into the night, but in the end, their leader stepped forward. Thornreach was built on strength, he said. But strength means standing together. We will answer your call. Elin bowed her head, gratitude filling her heart. As she left the city with a small group of warriors pledged to her cause, far away in a ruined fortress, Morvath watched through swirling shadows. His dark armor reflected the faint glow of dying magic. The heir gathers allies, he murmured coldly. Let her. Hope will only make her fall harder. Unaware of his gaze, Elin continued down the long road ahead. She knew more trials awaited her, but she also knew she was no longer alone. The fate of Aeloria was moving toward its final turning point. The final journey led Elin and her allies to the heart of Aeloria, where the land itself seemed wounded. Trees stood twisted and lifeless, rivers flowed slowly as if tired, and the sky hung low and gray. At the center of it all rose the shattered citadel, once the seat of the ancient kings, now claimed by shadow. Elin stood at the edge of the broken valley, the silver pendant glowing softly against her chest. Thornreach warriors waited behind her, their faces grim but determined. This is where it ends, Elin said quietly. As they approached the citadel, the air grew colder. The Shadowborn emerged from the ruins, hissing and clawing at the stone. Steel clashed against shadow as battle erupted. Elin pushed forward, her magic flowing like a living force, shielding her allies and driving back the darkness. At the citadel's highest tower, Morvath awaited. He stepped from the shadows, tall and terrible, his armor cracked and blackened, his eyes burning with corrupted light. In his hands was the crown of silver leaves twisted by dark magic. So, Morvath said, his voice echoing, the lost heir finally stands before me. Elin met his gaze without fear. You were meant to protect Aeloria. Morvath laughed bitterly. I did protect it. And when it abandoned me, I took what was owed. The crown pulsed violently as Morvath raised it. Darkness surged, slamming Elin to her knees. Pain tore through her, but she clutched the pendant, remembering her grandmother's voice, Kael's sacrifice, and every life depending on her choice. She stood. I don't fight for power, Elin said. I fight for hope. Light erupted from the pendant, brighter than anything before. The magic of Aeloria answered her call, wind, earth, and sky joining as one. The crown shattered in Morvath's hands, its corruption burning away. Morvath screamed as the shadows consumed him, then vanished, leaving only silence. The citadel trembled, then slowly began to heal. Cracked stone reformed, dead vines bloomed with green, and sunlight broke through the clouds for the first time in years. Elin fell to her knees, exhausted but alive. In the days that followed, the realms gathered. Aeloria's magic was restored, not bound to a crown, but shared among its people. Elin refused the title of queen. Let the land choose its own path, she said. She returned to Brindlewood at last, placing the pendant beside her grandmother's hearth. Though her journey had ended, her story lived on, in songs, in stars, and in the quiet strength of a girl who answered a whisper and changed the fate of a world.